Hmm?
Marketing.
Yeah, yeah. I think also the involvement of the GGC in the marketing of agriculture product is also not just coordinating, but you can see they are actually buying the produce from the farmers. That is direct engagement in the sector. Thank you, Honorable. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. My name is Taxation from Like I said, my name is Taxation from QTV Gambia. My first question is going to be on the Ministry of Youth and Sports. I mean, these are two critical sectors as far as this country is concerned. Over the years, I mean, we have seen the budget of this ministry always having become. What is responsible for that? Also, I mean, when you were laying the budget on 17th of November, you emphasized the need to increase domestic revenue. In this case, the taxes will rise. Are you anticipating any challenges as far as the issue of tax increasing for this concerned? Finally, budget implementation is something that we are saying is not, I mean, we haven't reached 100% as far as the budget implementation is concerned. Though your ministry is responsible for completing the budget. I mean, in terms of implementation, I mean, what mechanism do we have in place to ensure budget is implemented as this should?
Thank you. I think if I understand, just to reiterate your question, is about the allocation to youth and sports as being less than otherwise expected. I think this is by the nature of youth and sports as a ministry, because if you look at this year, we have increased the allocation to the ministry from 2023 to take into account Gambia's participation in AFCON. But not only that, when you come to youths and sports, it's a cross-cutting ministry. The matters of youths are not just housed in one ministry. It's a whole government approach to the youth as a sector. Matters of employment for youths are addressed under the Ministry of Youth, Trade and Employment. So if you look at the national employment policy, you'll see that the large chunk of the new jobs to be created are for the youths. And all the intervention in that employment policy are for the youth category. Then you go to higher education. Most of the scholarship at the universities are also catering to the youth group. If you look at the fisheries sector, all the new fisheries initiatives, job creation in the sector are all geared towards youth, because youths are defined as from the age of 18 to 35. So most of the population fall under that bracket. If you come to agriculture, the Shanghai Initiative, the Agricultural Extension Program, all of small ruminants, entrepreneurship drive, all of these are centered towards the youths. So it doesn't mean that the allocation to the youth ministry, the size reflects Gambia's government's commitment. No. That is just the coordination role of the ministry, but interventions in the sector of youth are addressed across the board, from MOPSI to higher training institutes to job creation, and even to the fishery subsector agriculture. So I think that's one area. Besides, also, we have mentioned that the youth ministry is not only endowed with resources from the budget, they also have access to sports levy, which is from the telecom gateway collection. And that is not factored in the budget. So this year we expect the sports levy to be in the region of $90 million. So effectively, what is in the budget under the youth ministry is not the total resource deployed to the sector, but it's just a fraction of it. The second thing is budget implementation. Yeah, we've taken notice of that, and budget implementation, as you know, is linked to cash availability. Due to the level of the indebtedness of the country, the level of expenditure monthly is based on what cash has been collected. So at the end of every month, we will sit as a ministry and allocate to sectors amounts based on how much revenue has been collected without borrowing and increasing the debt amount. That is important simply because you do not want to just give sectors amounts to spend when these amounts are not realized in the form of cash. Because if you do so, the only way you can fund those expenditures will be through borrowing. And when you borrow, you'll add to your debt stock, and that debt stock is like a debt spiral, which we are trying to come out of. If you look at this year's budget, we have spent more than 25% of the budget on debt service. And that is because of earlier debt accumulations in the past. So going forward, our priority is to reduce the debt stock and ensure that government expenditure is funded all funded, not just based on borrowing. So these are some of the explanation. And imagine also the impact of the allocation of 25% of the budget resources to debt service, when the combined areas of health, education, and agriculture is less than what we are putting forward to debt service. So that's why the anchor of the budget is to fight the deficit, reduce the deficit, and also reduce the domestic debt and foreign debt overall. So in the medium term, our debt to GDP is hovering around 80% now, but we want to bring this ratio to below 70%. Thank you. Oh, tax, what do you say about tax?
I mean, you're talking about increasing domestic.
No, yes, as we've just read the pronouncements, as you have seen, apart from the non-tax revenue, very limited increase in the tax revenue. Apart from this, those are all duties. What we are focusing on the domestic resource mobilized is not, we have not increased the corporation tax rate, we've not increased the value-added tax rate, we have not increased the personal income tax rate. No tax rates have been increased, apart from gambling, which is like what they call sin tax. The objective is to ensure that what belongs to government in the form of taxes is collected. So our domestic resource mobilization is hinged on enhancing compliance through digitalization and broadening the tax base so that the tax burden on the citizen will not be increased. By these measures, we do not expect Gambians should witness an increased payment of taxes. What we are working on is to broaden the tax base. We have come across new areas like rental income, which was never taxed, even though the tax was to be paid, but enforcement was an issue. Those are the areas we are looking at. Large contractors that we are also not paying taxes. This is where we are working on. But we are aware of the impact of any new taxes. That's why we have been very careful not to introduce new taxes. What we have introduced are user charges. These user charges are transaction related. If you don't go to the foreign ministry to authenticate your document, it doesn't affect you. And you will not be authenticating your document every time. Though these are normally user charges based on need and based on you engaging in that transaction. We believe the impact on the citizens will be moderate and should not cause economic challenge or harm to the population. Thank you.
It will be soon Juma time. Any more questions? Huh? One more. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maria from Strategy. Honorable Minister, so much has been said about the new national development plan, which is yet to go into law. So can you tell us why is this still not one and when is it considered as
I think the PS can take this one. Please, let's share the burden. If you don't mind.
Yeah, thank you very much. You could remember that the National Development Plan was supposed to expire in 2021, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a delay in implementation by about a year. So we found it necessary to extend the implementation of the National Development Plan by another 1 year. So in 2022 and especially in 2023, we felt the need, learning from the lesson of the national development, the current National Development Plan. We felt it is necessary to have a financing strategy, and the flagship projects of the National Development Plan should be costed. So these are the two reasons why we felt that we have to complete the all costings of the flagship projects and also develop a financing strategy. So we used the whole of most part of 2023 to develop the flagships projects and also host them and develop the financing strategy as well. But we intend to launch the National Development Plan in the early part of 2024, in the first quarter of 2024. Yes, thank you.
Last one, quickly, please, before we lose Juma. Huh?
My name is Fatima Haba. I work with the Alcamba Time. Honorable Minister, recently the President has announced that by 2024, prices such as taxation and public health will increase. Why did the government intend to increase non-tax-based revenue?
Yes. Thank you very much. I think the statement of the President is very timely, because if you look at our development trajectory, we have been relying on donors. We've been relying on donor fund for a long time. And when I was discussing the budget with him, he said, but Honorable Minister, we have non-tax revenue where some of these rates have been very old. I think the $25 charge at the hospital for consultation was in place more than almost 10 years now. Meanwhile, if people pay that 25, they have an implicit expectation to be provided consultation and some medication. That's one. If you go to lands, it's not only the healthcare, it's entire government system. If you go to lands to do some land transfers, some of the fees are in the hundreds, in the 50s, where the tariffs are so old. So he suggested, and we concur with him, that it is time that we revise these fees, and these fees revision are not everyday fees. These fees are only when you use those services, so that the impact on the population will be minimal, but meanwhile they have the opportunity to generate adequate revenue for us to take into account our own development agenda. Because any development agenda that's not financed is contingent on outside support. And as we all know, there is now what they call donor fatigue. When you look at our tax revenue to GDP, we are less than 10% as a country. Meanwhile, in sub-Saharan Africa, it's about 16%. So there's a lot of opportunity for increase in the revenue collection in terms of government services. And this will not be like full cost recovery. It will only be to increase these rates to take into account modest increases that will reflect what will be sustainable to generate revenue for the government. The government has embarked on developing road infrastructure, healthcare infrastructure, drugs, and all of these, and those cannot be funded without the contribution of the citizenry. And these are user charges mainly based on what you use it and when you use it. So it is not there to make lives and livelihood of Gambians hard, but it's only there to encourage Gambians to contribute and invest in their own national development. Thank you.
Thank you. That has brought us to the end of it. And we thank everybody for your availability and performance in this conference. Until next year. Assalamu alaikum. Sise, are you a Jaran?
Yes.
Are you from Jaran? Yeah.
country is concerned. On behalf of the production team and everyone here at QTV, we thank you so much for watching this live broadcast. Bye-bye.